Welcome to Infinite Unlimited. We are delivering the most inspirational ideas to reach your potential as an infinite, unlimited being. Please help this channel grow by leaving a like and subscribe and hit the bell button, so you won't miss any new videos. Enjoy.
Well, it's kind of interesting because I travel around the world and I have the opportunity to talk to all kinds of people. And one of the things that, independent of people's beliefs, political beliefs, religious beliefs, whatever, there seems to be a common thread that people feel like something's not right. And I think when you get to a point where you realize that no healthcare plan, no government, no religion is going to take care of you, then who is going to take care of you? And the answer is you, right? So my interest is to give people the tools and the understanding that they could heal their body, that they could create a better life for themselves, that they could overcome past traumas and scars that were created even as early as childhood that tend to be unconscious programs that keep them repeating the same, scenarios in their life, to teach people how to induce mystical experiences so that it changes the frame of the way they look at reality. And so what an amazing time in history to be alive, because consciousness is awareness, and awareness is paying attention, and paying attention is noticing. So if a person lives a life, as an example, and is diagnosed with a health condition, what they're conscious of is just a certain number of choices that they could make based on the past, based on tradition, based on what's worked for normal or natural. But what happens when that person has done the chemotherapy, has done the surgery, has done the radiation, has done the vegan diet, has done the gluten-free diet, has done the ketogenic diet, has done all the things, all the exercise, and they still have the same health condition? It begs the question, if our personality creates our personal reality, and our personality is made up of how we think, how we act, and how we feel, then the present personality who's listening to this podcast has created the present personal reality called their life. Not their ex, not their parents, not their culture. They create their life. So the fundamental question is, if I want to change my life, then that means that I have to change, or nothing changes in my life until I change, right? So the person who's done all these treatments and still faced with a health condition, this is just an example, all of a sudden says, there's got to be another way. There's got to be something else. And so knowledge, information, when we learn knowledge, when we learn information, we make new connections in our brain. That's what learning is. We're forging synaptic connections. But that philosophical, theoretical, intellectual information is void of experience. Someone who takes that knowledge and applies it and personalizes, demonstrates it, initiates that knowledge, is now interested in the truth of the experience of that information. So the person then who becomes conscious that they could actually heal themselves by changing the way they think, the way they act, the way they feel. If I truly go into the experiment of no longer thinking the same way, no longer acting the same way, no longer feeling the same way, and I start thinking about what thoughts I do want to fire and wire in my brain, and if I do it with intention and attention, I'll begin to install neurological hardware. Keep doing it, and it becomes like a software program. It becomes a new voice in your head that goes from I can't to I can. No magic there. If you said, how would greatness live today? What would love look like today? What would be a greater expression of myself in the things that I do? Turns out if you close your eyes and you rehearse in your mind how you're going to be in any aspect of your day, if you're truly present, the brain doesn't know the difference between the inward experience of what you're imagining and the outer real experience. The brain looks like you've already done it. The brain looks like it's already experienced it. Now, do that enough times, the hardware becomes a software program, and you start behaving like a different person. Musicians, athletes, dancers, everybody who's good at something is always rehearsing in their mind. That rehearsal is just as important as the physical demonstration. It's priming the brain, because the brain is a record of the past. Now you're actually making it a map to the future. You're installing circuits to use. If you said, God, I lived my whole life in guilt. I didn't know it was guilt, in shame or unworthiness and self-doubt, insecurity, fear. And all of a sudden, you're looking at that emotion. You understand that emotion is actually down-regulating genes and creating disease. You figured that out. You read about it. It makes sense. Then all of the hatred, all the anger, all the bitterness you have to someone or something in your past is keeping you connected to the past. So you'd say, can I teach my body emotionally what a new future could feel like before it happens? Not waiting for your wealth to feel abundance, or waiting for your relationship to feel love, or waiting for your healing to feel gratitude. That's the old model of reality of cause and effect. This is about causing and effect. Turns out if you can elevate your emotional state and you can sustain that emotional state, your body's so objective that it doesn't know the difference between the real life experience that's creating that emotion and that emotion that you're creating by thought alone. Your body's actually believing it's living in a new reality, a new environment. Now, the environment signals the gene. The end product of an experience in the environment is an emotion. That person is actually signaling genes ahead of the environment. Genes make proteins, and proteins are responsible for the structure and function of the body. The expression of proteins is the expression of life. Okay. Every day the person practices going from the old self to the new self. This is what's happening in the world right now. As they start to change and they start unfiring and unwiring, and they stop conditioning the body emotionally to the past and practice this, they emerge as a new personality. They become somebody else. And like magic, the disease exists in the old person and there's somebody else. Now here's where consciousness comes in. That person comes to a workshop and they stand on the stage in front of 1,500 people and they tell their story. And everybody in that audience is leaning in. Why? Because they're looking at truth. So I'm talking about stage 4 cancers, I'm talking about Parkinson's disease, I'm talking about rare genetic disorders. And now the person in the audience is becoming conscious of a possibility that they were once unconscious to. And when they see that's possible, it's a 4-minute mile. I mean, 4-minute mile, nobody thought anybody could break a mile in under 4 minutes. They said it was biologically and physiologically impossible. 1,400 people have done it already. So like, this is the 4-minute mile. It was piercing through a limitation, a level of unconsciousness. And now, that's a footprint in the quantum field, but in 3-dimensional reality, you're looking at that person and they look no different than anybody else. And the person says, if that person can do it, I can do it as well. Now, all of a sudden, what's emerging in the world now because of information is teaching people that there are other possibilities that they were unconscious to. And you don't need an authority any longer. You don't need a priest. You don't need a governor. You don't need a teacher. You don't need a doctor to gain information any longer. Information is available, but the question is, what will you do with it? So if you give people sound scientific information, and science is the language of mysticism, and you combine quantum physics with neuroscience and neuroendocrinology and psychoneuroimmunology and epigenetics and electromagnetism, and make it simple. And don't talk about tradition or religion or culture. That's going to divide an audience. But bring the model of science in. If that person can reason and understand what they're doing with that information and why they're doing it, then the side effect of how they're doing it is going to get easier. And now the application becomes essential. So what we're seeing is this emergent consciousness where people are taking their power back and not relying on anyone or anything for their own personal change or transformation. And I think that when you get enough people doing it, emergence in biology is a group of birds all moving in the same direction, of a school of fish all moving. The appearance is a larger organism. They're behaving in the exact same way. There's no leader. When you study that in biology, everybody's leading. So how are we going to change the world? It's not one person, not one consciousness. It's a collective consciousness. And the research says that collective networks of observers determine reality. Get enough people believing in possibility, sooner or later, someone's going to run into that experience. And you need one. And once you know it's possible, then other people will start doing it as well, just like the 4-minute mile. So in the world right now, I think we're seeing a breaking down of so many conventions, whether it's religion or medicine or the environment or journalism. Everything's falling apart right now because it can't sustain itself, because no organisms in nature live in this kind of abusive competition. Organisms survive in cooperation and connection and communion. Keep people in fear, keep them angry, keep them in pain, keep them all those survival emotions. You'll never have community. You bring people into an elevated emotional state, something innate in the human species says we're empathic to one another, we celebrate one another, we want to get along with one another, we want to cooperate, we want to resolve issues together. That's who we are when we're not living in stress and survival.
I really hope you have enjoyed this video. If you have learned something new or just want to share your thoughts about this video, please leave a comment. Until next time.